Hello everyone and good evening. My name is Jacob Rudolph, and I, as April said, am a senior majoring in political science, and my minors are overachieving, advanced stress management skills, and most importantly, senioritis. To my fellow students in the room, I'm humbled to be among such passionate individuals who have strived for excellence and who have succeeded. Thank you for inspiring me to continue reaching high. To the staff and faculty present, I hope by the end of my remarks you will know just how important your support is in molding students like us to pursue opportunities that expand our worldviews and immeasurably enrich our lives. In my 4 years here at the University of Miami, I have had 3 moments of truth with the Office of Prestigious Awards and Fellowships. The first of these times was to celebrate my selection as the university's first ever Point Foundation Scholar. The second was to help me lick my wounds after I was rejected from the Truman Scholarship. And the third was to celebrate again because I had just been selected to participate in Humanity in Action's prestigious John Lewis Fellowship. For those of you who are unfamiliar with John Lewis, the man is a living legend of the American Civil Rights era. Mr. Lewis was beaten bloody at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama and has been arrested 40 times in his pursuit of justice and human rights in the United States. Mr. Lewis is a mentee of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and subscribes wholeheartedly to Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolent social change. Today, John Lewis is a member of the House of Representatives and is often regarded as the conscience of the United States Congress. On behalf of Humanity in Action and the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, I want to welcome you to Atlanta, the cradle of the Civil Rights Movement, and to the 2016 John Lewis Fellowship. Over the next 4 weeks, you will hear from renowned scholars, activists, and political leaders who have dedicated themselves to advancing civil and human rights across the world. As an emerging leader, you will learn to engage in intellectual discourse, propose solutions, and develop the skill sets needed to bring forth effective social, political, and economic change that improves the lives of all human beings within and beyond the United States. As well, you will have an opportunity to explore our city and see where history unfolded, where movements took shape, and where leaders were groomed. This will be an incredible, transformative experience that will provide you the framework to improve the world in which we all share. As a fellow, you will be challenged. You will be questioned. You will be pushed to your intellectual and moral boundaries. But in the end, you will become a drum major for justice, a champion for freedom, and a clarion for peace. I hope you enjoy your time in Atlanta and the program that we have created for you. This is your time to learn, grow, and shine. I look forward to the journey. With regards, Dr. Karshik Sims Alvarado, Director of the John Lewis Fellowship. You see, before this fellowship, I thought I knew America. I thought I knew her histories. I thought I knew the integrity of our social sacred contract of liberty and justice for all. I thought I knew black people's history. I thought I knew the truth. So when I found out that I would be required every single day to unlearn the watered-down version of American history I was taught in high school and replace it with knowledge far harsher and far crueler than I could have ever imagined, knowledge stained with blood and spit, I realized that these 4 weeks were going to be the most important intellectual, spiritual, and fraternal exercises of my life. As is the nature of a fellowship, there were fellows. 15 were from the United States, and 15 were from Europe. But among all 30, I was the only white male. Unlike many people of color who have often found themselves in such a position, the experience of being a racial minority was new to me. And considering the subject material, I knew that it was of utmost importance that I took time, and then more time, to simply listen. Fortunately, listening was easy because these fellows were the most brilliant people I have ever met. Each person's background enriched our discourse. Creative questions and even more creative answers abounded. I was in awe of them. Berna from Amsterdam, Ageliki from Greece, Mediha from Denmark, River from Atlanta, Margot from Poland, and hey, Jacob from New Jersey. American culture was new to many of the Europeans, and so I was honored to help ease their transition by making many of them their first peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We became extremely close, and not just because we liked each other, which we very much did, but because of necessity. We bonded in deep emotionality to cope with the realities we were confronting within our program and outside of it. You see, the days of July 2016 were harsh times. Just one day into the fellowship, Alton Sterling and Philando Castile had been shot by police. Black Lives Matter organizers were quick to gather supporters to march down Peachtree Street all the way to Piedmont Park in Atlanta, a distance of about 5 miles. Our cohort was energized at the prospect of getting on the ground, and so we made our signs and we laced up our shoes. My sign said, "In violence we forget who we are." This was all happening just 1 month after the Pulse shooting in Orlando, one of the saddest days of my life. Throughout this fellowship, we closely followed the news, which seems to be getting worse day after day. Attacker in France kills 84 during holiday celebration. Dallas police ambushed, 12 officers shot, 5 killed during protest. The deadliest attack in Baghdad in years kills more than 200. So amidst these tragedies, the John Lewis Fellows and I found ourselves hungry for any knowledge that may equip us to confront these challenges with intelligence and with courage. And so as we asked for knowledge, the universe got to work answering our prayers. On one day, we were students learning from the great-great-grandson of both Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington. On another day, we were students of Dr. Betty Shabazz, a daughter of Malcolm X. On yet another day, we engaged with John Lewis himself for more than 2 hours. On yet another day, we listened in awe to author and prophet Dr. Daniel Black, who spoke of the manner in which Africans were first taken from their homeland and shipped over the ocean in chains. Thousands of human stories lie dormant in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and I want to take this moment to honor these narratives that will never be told. Among the many unwritten narratives of African slaves, however, one man managed to tell his own story. Frederick Douglass wrote about knowledge and about bread. You see, after he was promoted from a field slave to a house slave, Frederick Douglass would give bread, physical bread, to the white literate children of Baltimore who were poor in exchange for the bread of knowledge, for reading and writing. He understood that bread would liberate his hunger, but education would liberate his mind. Each day at the fellowship, I pushed the limits of my intellect and was consistently exhausted by the day's end. Not only was the mental rigor of this powerful education devouring my energies, the emotional tone of this information often paralyzed my imagination, much to my horror. In experience, the fellows and I found that the best way to combat the grief we were feeling for the history of Black America was through spiritual healing and some good old-fashioned fun. Over the course of the fellowship, the fellows and I attended beautiful art museums, a wonderful theater production of "To Kink in My Hair," where I learned about the magic of black women's hair. We had picnics in the beautiful Piedmont Park, eating Nigerian food and dancing on the softest grass in all of Georgia. I made sure to take my new friends to a drag show because let me tell you, there are few things that bring me greater joy than seeing the look on straight people's faces at a drag show. And do not even get me started about the time I sang "Lean on Me" at an open mic night in Midtown. And so not only did fun for fun's sake help us balance out the intensity of this program, I relied heavily on spirituality to keep my head up. So much of what we discussed was painful. It was painful to confront the deeper history of America I love so dearly, only to discover the carefully hidden grotesqueness of a nation founded on the principles of liberty and justice for all. It was painful to recognize that the institutions and history of this country are constructed in such a way so as to privilege white people like me. I learned that white guilt is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for reflection, a first step to understanding what actions I, as a leader, as a white young leader, can take going forward to make sure this world is more inclusive for people of all races and of all creeds. When I learned that the KKK was founded at Stone Mountain, just 40 minutes from where we were studying in Atlanta, my mouth dropped. I carefully asked if anyone was interested in visiting the site at which the Confederate flag still flies. Some said yes, and so we went. The hike had me winded by the time we finished getting up to the summit, but I was filled with new energy as I gazed down upon the shimmering and misty earth, a panorama of Atlanta I don't think I'll ever forget. I found it hard to imagine that a place of such beauty could have been consecrated in the name of something so hateful. I pulled out a bundle of sage, traditionally used in Native American spiritual rituals for purification, and I lit it. I brought with me a book of Martin Luther King Jr.'s compiled prayers, and each of the fellows and I began to read a prayer out loud, one that spoke to us. We spoke to wipe clean the mountain on which we stood. And as I voiced the prayer I chose, humbly speaking the words of a great man of God, I felt a deep and long stir in my heart. You see, I realized that love is the only thing that can heal the wounds of the past and the present. And furthermore, I realized that it is my responsibility to be that love I wish to see in the world. This realization has not been forgotten. In fact, it has clarified my own understandings of why I work so hard to learn and to grow. And on the subject of love, I would be remiss if I did not let you all know that at the John Lewis Fellowship, I fulfilled my most intense childhood dream of attending in its fullest radiance a Baptist gospel church. I'm not kidding. Ever since I was exposed to the 5 muses in the Disney movie Hercules, my soul has been eagerly awaiting that moment. At the fellowship, I had the privilege of attending not just any Baptist church, but the Ebenezer Baptist Church, Martin Luther King Jr.'s church. If any of you have not experienced a Sunday parade of women wearing outlandish hats in a sanctuary, a gospel choir whose key changes can send shockwaves of joy through your spine, and a sermon so hot that the preacher could start a fire, you, my friends, might have a new item on your bucket lists. And so as I wrap up, I want to conclude by going back to the beginning. When I first arrived in Atlanta, I put my things in my room, and I walked to the closest Publix to pick up some necessities. As I was leaving the store, I was approached. I saw Ron counting his change, and he came over to me and asked if I had 50 cents. He looked homeless. I didn't have any cash, but I began to talk to him. And over the next few minutes, he told me his story. He told me that in the 1980s, he had graduated from Howard University, a prestigious and historically black university, with a bachelor's in political science, and that he had graduated in 2015 with his master's degree in public administration from Georgia State. He told me that he had just been selected to participate in a PhD program. And he told me of his dream to someday start a nonprofit organization to help the homeless and impoverished. I could hear the pride in his voice, and his determination to overcome his obstacles and thrive. He said he was at the top of his class, and I swear I just knew from the way he was speaking that he was telling the truth. And then he paused. He looked down and went on to say that he has pancreatic cancer. And as the rain blew onto his head, he pulled on his hood and said with melancholy, "I really shouldn't be out in the elements, but I can't even afford bus fare." I could see the tears begin to well up in his eyes. I looked at him and I felt his tremendous pain and distress. I approached his body and I took it in my arms and I hugged it with as much love as I could possibly give. He began to cry. And so we held each other until he let go, only to say in between his tears, "Do you even know how much that hug just meant to me? That there's something about the human touch that I just don't get to experience much these days. That I'm the type of person who loves through touch, and we hugged again. I went to an ATM, and I took out some money, and in the following minutes, we talked more about passion, and about not giving up, and about how his story is going to inspire so many people when he gets the chance to share it. But because I'm not sure whether this cancer-stricken, college-educated man who feasted on the bread of knowledge in the 21st century of the United States, who could not even afford bus fare, is still alive or not, I feel responsible now for telling his story myself. When we seek prestigious opportunities, I hope we can do so from a place of knowingness, that our successes have the potential to serve a much larger purpose in this world. Our passion for triumph, for achievement, comes from a deep place within us that desires wholeness. We're the only animals who are naturally unfinished. And so it is our task as humans to bring ourselves to fulfillment, to integration, and to coherence. And John Lewis himself would tell you, there's no better way to do this than through the pursuit of excellence and unselfish service to humanity.